Have you ever tried to say, my mother forced me to do my homework, but accidentally said, 母に宿題をしてあげました? This actually means I did the homework for my mother as a favor. Totally wrong, right? Or you tried a passive form. 母に宿題をされました. Now it means my mother did the homework and I'm upset. So, how do you say it correctly? Fortunately, Japanese has a specific grammar to express this. You can say, 母は私に宿題をさせました. My mother made me do the homework. It's called the causative form, and I will explain how to use it. The causative form actually has three main uses: letting someone do something, forcing someone to do something, or causing someone to react in a certain way. Let's take a look. 犬が外に行きたがっているので散歩させました。The dog looks like it wants to go out, so I let it take a walk. 散歩する changed into the causative form, 散歩させる to express letting the dog take a walk rather than simply taking a walk. この犬は歩くのが嫌いですが散歩させました。This dog doesn't like walking, but I forced it to take a walk. So the causative form is exactly the same in these two sentences. Both use 散歩させました. But why do they have different meanings? In the first example, the dog wants to go out, so taking a walk is something the dog would enjoy. You don't need to force the dog. On the other hand, the second sentence explains that the dog doesn't like to walk, so taking a walk becomes a forced activity. So the meaning depends on the context. But wait, how about cause? A cause and effect sentence can actually stand on its own, independent of context, so I will go into more detail later in the video, so stay tuned. Now that you understand the meanings, let's look at how to form the causative form of a verb. As you know, Japanese verbs can be split into three categories. Let's start with regular one verb or U-verb. The dictionary form of these verbs ends with U sound. And to change it into the causative form, you replace the U sound with an A sound. Then add seru. For example, 行く means to go becomes 行かせる as ku changes to ka. How about the following? 言う means to say and it becomes 言わせる when the verb ends with a u sound without the consonant. Instead of simply becoming a, it becomes wa. You have seen this in the nai form as well. Matsu means to wait, and it becomes mataseru. Rather than becoming tsa, it simply becomes ta. This follows the same rule as in the nai form. Yomu means to read, and it becomes yomaseru. Next, let's take a look at regular two-verb or Ru-verb. For regular two verbs, also known as Ru-verbs, conjugation is much simpler. You can simply remove the ending ru from the dictionary form and replace it with saseru. For example, taberu, which means to eat, becomes tabesaseru. How about the following verbs? Yameru means to quit, and it becomes yamesaseru. Miru means to see, and it becomes misaseru. Akeru means to open, and it becomes akesaseru. Now, let's look at irregular verbs. When it comes to irregular verbs, good news, there are only two, so you just need to memorize them. First, kuru, which means to come, becomes kosaseru. Second, suru, which means to do, becomes saseru. Alright, now that you know how to form the causative, here's something really important. Many learners often get confused, but when the verb takes another form, it also changes the verb type. Whenever you turn a verb into the causative form, it becomes a regular two or Ru-verb. Let's look at an example. The verb iu is a regular one or U-verb. So its negative form is iwanai. But when you change it into the causative form, it becomes iwaseru And now it's a regular to or Ru-verb. So naturally its negative form becomes iwasenai. Alright, now comes the part where we actually use this in real Japanese. There are three main ways to use the causative form in sentences, and once you know them, everything will start to click. Let's dive in. In Japanese, verbs don't all follow the same patterns, especially when it comes to particles. Many verbs take a noun followed by the particle o. Here's the key rule. If the verb takes o, then the person doing the action is followed by ni. That's it. Let's see it in action. 朝ごはんを食べます. I eat breakfast. As you can see, the verb 食べる takes the particle o with a noun 朝ごはん as an object. This is the type of verb I'm talking about. What do you do if you want to say, I let my children eat breakfast? First, you change 食べる into its causative form and it becomes 食べさせる. Next, we add 子供たち, which means children, to the sentence. Since they are the ones doing the eating, we mark them with ni. Pretty straightforward, right? Let's look at a few more examples. お母さんは子供に1時間だけゲームをさせました。Mom let the children play games for only 1 hour. Here, the mother is allowing the action. You can see that the verb する takes the direct object with o, so you need to add ni after 子供 when using it in a causative form. 父は兄に仕事を手伝わせました。My father forced my older brother to help with his work. In this case, it is forced. The older brother has no choice. 先生は学生に単語を覚えさせました。The teacher forced a student to memorize words. This sentence also clearly shows that it is forcing rather than allowing. Let's move on to the next case. When you are using an intransitive verb which does not have the noun plus o pattern, then use o following the person who does the action. Let's look at an example. この椅子に子供を座らせます。I let my child sit on this chair. But be careful, depending on the context, this could also mean I make my child sit. So causative forms can carry both a gentle let feeling and a stronger force meaning. Here's another example. 外で犬を遊ばせました。I let my dog play outside. The actor who performs an action doesn't have to be people or animals. You can use this with things. That said, just because you can use the causative form for things, it doesn't mean you always should. So how do you know when it works and when it doesn't? Let's take a closer look. Let's take a look at this verb tatsu, which means to stand. Now, tatsu is an intransitive verb and it doesn't take a noun plus o in its sentence. Let's try to say this sentence in Japanese. I let the sign stand here. Would you say, ここに看板を立てさせました? Well, actually, this is not natural Japanese. Instead, we should say, ここに看板を立てました. Here, we are using a transitive verb instead of the causative form. So, is it always wrong to use 立たせる for things? Actually, it's not always wrong. Look at this example. やっと卵を立たせましたよ. Finally, I let an egg stand. This one is perfectly fine, but why? The key is difficulty. Making a sign stand doesn't require much effort, but making an egg stand is not an easy task. So, making something do something difficult, you can use the causative form. And there's actually some more important rules about using the causative form with things. Let's take a look at that next. Now, let's look at the verb kusaru, which means to rot. This is an intransitive verb and it does not take a noun plus o in its sentence. Take a look at this sentence. 先週買ったキュウリを腐らせました. I let the cucumbers that I bought last week rot. Now, cucumbers are inanimate objects. Yet, this sentence uses the causative form. Is this a correct and natural sentence in Japanese? The answer is yes. Why? Because the change that happened to the cucumbers is something that can occur naturally. Cucumbers naturally rot over time. This is another situation where an object can act as the actor in a causative sentence, when it undergoes a natural change on its own. You can think of this type of sentence as expressing a cause and effect relationship. The cause is that I left the cucumbers uneaten for a week after buying them, and the result is that they became rotten. Let's look at another example. 温暖化が桜の花をいつもより早く咲かせました。Global warming made the cherry blossoms bloom earlier than usual. This sentence is also perfectly natural because blooming is another change that occurs naturally. Once again, we have a cause and effect relationship. The cause is global warming, and the result is that the cherry blossoms bloom earlier than usual. So objects can be the actor in a causative sentence when the change they undergo is a natural one. In these cases, it often helps to think of the causative form as describing a cause and effect relationship rather than someone intentionally making something happen. But wait, there's one more case for thing, and this time it's all about body parts. When the actor isn't just a simple thing but a body part, it usually means we are letting that body part act or change. These are often idiomatic expressions. Let's look at examples. 頭を働かせる literally means let your head work, but what it actually means is to use your brain. 心を躍らせる literally means let your heart jump around, but it basically means to feel excited. 目を楽しませるliterally means let the eyes enjoy, but it means something is visually pleasing. So when body parts are used as actors in causative expressions, they typically appear in idiomatic expressions. So far, it seems pretty clear when to use o and ni, but what if I told you there are verbs where both can work in a causative sentence? Let's dive into this surprising case. A small group of intransitive verbs behave a little differently in causative sentences, and this is where things get interesting. With these verbs, you can actually use either o or ni. But there's a catch. If the sentence already has ni or could possibly take ni, you will need to use o instead. Otherwise, you have a choice. So what happens when you do have that choice? Let's take a look. 買い物は子供を行かせます。For shopping, I make my children go. 買い物は子供に行かせます。For shopping, I let my children go. Here, 行く is one of those special verbs that allow both o and ni in its causative form, 行かせます. At first glance, these sentences look almost identical, right? The only difference is the particle after 子供. Both sentences are perfectly natural, and you will hear both in everyday speech. So what's the difference? With o, there's a stronger feeling of force, like you are making someone do things. With ni, it softens, more like you are letting someone do something. In real conversations, context will guide the exact meaning, but comparing them side by side lets you really feel the nuance. And 行く isn't the only one. You will also see this with verbs like 泳ぐ to swim, and many noun plus する verbs such as 出張する to go on a business trip, 下宿する to stay in the boarding house. I already talked about cause and effect when things change naturally, like cucumbers rotting or flowers blooming, but how about cause and effect involves people? Let's find this out next. When we use causative forms with verbs that describe emotions or reaction, something interesting happens. In these cases, the sentence always expresses a clear cause and effect relationship, and we always use O to mark the person who reacts. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. オンライン会議に社長が猫耳で来たのでみんなを笑わせました。The president came to the online meeting wearing cat ears and made everyone laugh. 突然後ろから大声を出して弟を驚かせました。Suddenly, I shouted from behind and made my little brother startled. In both of these examples, something happens first and that action triggers a reaction in someone else. That's the key idea. Now that we've seen all the patterns, let's bring everything together and summarize. Let's start with how to actually form the causative form. For regular one or U-verb, you take the verb stem, change the final sound to the A sound, and add seru. For example, 行く becomes 行かせる. For regular to or Ru-verb, it's simpler. Just drop Ru from its dictionary form and add させる. For example, 食べる becomes 食べさせる. Finally, there are only two irregular verbs. 来る meaning to come becomes 来させる, and する meaning to do becomes させる. Okay, now let's review the sentence patterns and their meanings. We covered a lot in this video, so I won't go over everything again. If you would like to review the summary more carefully, feel free to pause the video. But wait, I have a special free offer for you. Be sure to check out my other videos for more Japanese learning tips. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss new videos. You can also join my daily quizzes in the post section. If you're interested in doing JLPT test practice or want to seriously improve your Japanese pronunciation, check out the links to my Udemy courses below. You can watch a free sample lesson from my Japanese pronunciation course. And now, here's the free offer. The summary I showed you in this video, along with some example sentences, is available as a downloadable file down below. Thank you for watching.